Hey everyone, and welcome back to Daily Tuition. In this short course, we will be look at React hooks and understand React hooks in detail with example. We're also going to look at the latest hooks which are included in React 18. Let's dive in and see the first React hook, which is useState. useState is the React hook useful when you want to update DOM value. With useState, you can preserve the variable value between functions call. So let me show you a very simple example. I'm going to create here a function. I'm simply going to create here a function app, and then I'm going to export this function. So I'm going to say here export default app, and inside this function I'm going to call the useState hook. To call the useState hook, you need to first import that. So at the top you have to say import useState and call from React. But this statement is going to return an error. This is because useState is not a default export just like this from the React library. Instead, you have to call here an object, and inside that object you have to put this useState. So that once you put the useState inside an object, because this is not the default export, now you can call this useState inside your application. So to call useState in your application, you have to say constant in the array, you specify the name for the state, or let me simplify this, just specify the name for your variable. So we specify name for this variable name. You can specify any name to this variable, that's upon you. And to this array, you also specify the setter function. It means the function which allows you to update the value of this name variable. So we specify here function name set name. That's upon you. You can specify any name here. So let's suppose that you want to specify here name usename, then that completely fine. Just out of that, we specify here equal to sign, and then say here use state. Then inside this parenthesis, you specify the initial value to this name variable. This name variable is just like the normal JavaScript variable, but with this useState, you can update the value of this name variable with this function. So let me first specify the initial value to this name variable. So just for now, I'm going to specify here initial value daily. Just out of that, I'm going to say here return, and inside this return, I'm simply going to call a division tag with app class, and then I'm going to print a paragraph here. And then I'm going to say here channel name is, and this curly braces, I'm going to print this name variable. When I save the changes, you can see I'm going to get here response channel name is daily. This is going to print this initial value inside this paragraph. But what if you want to update this value? To update this value, you need to create a function. So whenever you click on that function, you can update the value of this name variable. To do that, let me create a button just out of this paragraph. Right down here, I'm going to create a button and specify on-click handler function to it. The handler function name is change name. You can specify any name here, that's upon you. And to this button, we specify text click me. So when you click on this on-click button, I'm going to execute this change name handler function. Let me copy this and create this function. Otherwise, you will get an error message. So here I'm going to say constant change name is equal to, and this is a type of function. So we pass here function statement. Just out of that here, whenever you click on this click me button, I want to update the value of this name. So to update the value of this name, we have here a function called setName. You can call this setName right inside this change name. And then inside the parentheses, you specify the value to this name variable. So as you know, the initial value is daily. We can change this value by specifying here double quote and specify here tuition. And I save the changes. And when I click on this click me, you can see it's going to change the value of this state. Now let's suppose by using this click me, you want to toggle this initial and this specified value. In that case, instead of specifying this initial value to this useState, you specify here true. And inside this set name, here you specify name. Now inside this name, we have true value, this one. And then we specify here question mark, and then specify here in a double quote daily and the false value, which is tuition. I'm going to call here ternary if and else condition. So if you have true inside this name variable, specify daily this name. Otherwise, specify tuition. But you can notice this statement is going to change the initial value of the state. If I try to click on this button again, it's not going to do anything. This is because now inside this name variable, instead of true, we have daily value. So to solve this problem, we can use this statement right here instead of this name. So we pass here name and the ternary if and else condition. And inside this set statement, we're just going to have name with exclamation mark. So whenever the value changes, I'm going to pass the inverted value to this variable. Now let me save this and click on this click me. You can see by clicking on this click me button, I can change the value of this variable. Now, because we use here exclamation mark, whenever I click on this change name, we are going to change this initial value with the new one. Because we have exclamation mark here, this exclamation mark is going to invert the initial value. So let's suppose that we have true inside this variable, then this exclamation mark is going to change their true to false. And then when we have false here, it's going to print this tuition value. Now you're not limited to specify only string or boolean values inside this use state. Instead, you can pass here object as well, something like this. You can specify here properties like first name, last name, and their values. And if you want to access these values, you need to update this name variable as well. So instead of just name, you need to specify the property value. So I'm going to copy this and then specify here dot and specify the property value. Now because this is an object, you need to call the property value with the name object. Let me save this, and you can see I'm going to have here daily because the first name initial value is daily. If I want to update this value, then right inside this set name, I'm going to pass an object and specify here first name and a new value, updated. Save this and reload the browser. Now when I click on this click me, you're going to get the updated value. But when I click on this click me again, you're not going to get anything. The reason behind this statement is going to reinitialize the state, and you're going to have only one property inside your name variable. Let me show you. If I console.log this, if I say console.log name, and if I open my console.log and click on this click me, you can see you're going to get here first name updated. This statement is going to update the previous state, and you're going to get a new state as a response. So this statement will work well, but it will remove the second property from the initial state, and you're going to lose your data. So to solve this problem, you have to preserve the object value in the use state. To do that, you can simply use here object.assign, or you can use the spread operator. Here I'm going to call an object because the initial value of the state is object. Then we specify the name. Right now inside this name variable, we have the default value of the state, which is going to be this value. We have two properties inside this name right now. Just out of that, I'm going to specify a comma and then pass the new value. So we specify here first name and updated value, this one. Now just out of that, before this name, you need to specify here spread operator. So you call here triple dot. Now this spread operator is going to combine this first name property with this object. So now when I save the changes and reload the browser, and when I click on this click me, it's going to first return the initial value of the state. And when I click on this click me again, you can see I'm going to get the updated value, which is this first name. If you want to update this second value, you can pass this last name right here. Save the changes, click on this click me. It's going to update the last value. Use state is also useful in the form as well. Let's suppose that we have here a use state with the initial value string. Then I'm going to call here a form, and inside that form, I'm going to have the input text box of the type text. Then to the value attribute, we specify this variable. And just out of that, to the onChange event, I'm going to call the handler function and then call this set name function. And inside that, I'm going to call event.target.value. Inside this value, we're going to have the value of this input text box. To access the current input text box value, I'm going to specify here target.value property. And at the end, I'm going to call the button and submit this value to the form using this change name handler function. Let me save the changes, and you can see I'm going to have the input text box and a button. Inside this handler function, I'm going to console.log name and say here e.prevent default, and then call here event parameter because we are accessing this event parameter right inside this function. Let me save the changes and now clear this screen. Now whenever I specify anything inside this input text box, let's suppose that if I specify here daily tuition, then you can see I'm going to have my text right inside my browser. This is because I'm changing the value of the name variable using this set name handler function. Whenever I change anything inside the input text box, we are going to execute the onChange event handler, and we have the response inside this variable. Now if I try to click on this button, we get that value inside the console with this change name handler function. So I hope you understand the possible ways you can work with use state in the React application. Now once you understand the use state, let's understand the next Reactor.